When a person dies, decomposition begins within hours. Within days, the process is irreversible and visible. Within weeks, it is complete. This is not a matter of debate. It is biology. And yet, throughout history, certain bodies have been exhumed years, decades, even centuries after death, and found perfectly intact, no decomposition, no odor, sometimes described as giving off a sweet scent, no embalming, no special preservation techniques, no explanation. This is called incorruptibility. And it has been documented in dozens of verified historical cases. Science has never fully explained it. Let's start with the most famous case. Bernadette Soubirous died in 1879 in France. She was a French nun, famous for reporting visions of the Virgin Mary at Lourdes. When her body was exhumed 30 years after death for the beatification process, it was intact. Exhumed again 11 years later, still intact, and again 8 years after that. 3 separate official examinations over 49 years. Each time the body showed no significant decomposition. Medical doctors present at each examination confirmed what they saw. Her body is still on public display today in a glass case in Nevers, France, visited by thousands of people every year. She is not unique. Saint Catherine of Siena died 1380, body examined centuries later, reportedly intact. Saint Francis Xavier died 1552 in China. Body shipped back to Goa, India. Arrived months later, reportedly intact. Examined by multiple physicians who confirmed the absence of embalming. His right forearm was eventually removed and sent to Rome, where it remains on display. Pope Pius X died 1914. Exhumed 1944. Reportedly showing minimal decomposition despite 30 years. These cases span centuries, continents, and different religious traditions. The Catholic Church has a formal process for verifying incorruptibility as part of canonization. It requires multiple independent medical examinations. It explicitly excludes natural mummification, embalming, or environmental preservation as explanations. Only cases where those factors are ruled out are considered verified incorruptibility. The Church currently recognizes over 100 such cases. Most are on public display in churches and monasteries across Europe and beyond. You can visit them, people do, every day, and the bodies are still there, still unchanged, some after hundreds of years. Now let's talk about what science actually says about incorruptibility, because the scientific investigation of these cases is genuinely interesting. Decomposition is driven by 2 main processes. First, internal bacteria. The body's own gut bacteria begin consuming the body from the inside out. Second, external environment. Temperature, humidity, oxygen, insects all accelerate decay. Both processes can be dramatically slowed by specific conditions. Extremely dry conditions can naturally mummify a body. Extremely cold conditions can preserve tissue. Certain soil chemistry can slow decay significantly. And specific bacterial environments inside the body itself can sometimes inhibit rather than accelerate decay. In some documented cases, the soil conditions of the burial site have been cited as a plausible explanation. But here is where the science gets genuinely difficult. In the case of Bernadette Soubirous, her body was exhumed from a standard burial vault. Not a dry desert, not permafrost, not unusual soil, a standard European church vault, in the same conditions as many other bodies that fully decomposed normally. When scientists examined her body in the 20th century, they noted some blackening of the face, attributed to exposure during the examinations themselves rather than decomposition. The overall preservation remained unexplained by standard environmental factors. There is a theoretical mechanism that some researchers have proposed. Certain individuals may have had unusually high levels of specific antimicrobial compounds in their tissues, either from diet, genetics, or particular health conditions. That could theoretically inhibit both internal bacterial activity and external decay. This has never been confirmed in any of the documented incorruptible cases. Because obtaining tissue samples from bodies considered sacred is essentially impossible. The science is genuinely stuck. Here is where it gets more complicated. Not all reported cases of incorruptibility hold up under scrutiny. Some historically documented cases were later found to involve embalming that wasn't disclosed. Some were natural mummification in unusually dry burial conditions. Some were simply exaggerated accounts from witnesses who wanted to believe. The history of miraculous claims is full of genuine misidentification and wishful interpretation, which means we need to separate the cases that have been rigorously examined from the ones that haven't. When you apply that filter, you still have a smaller but genuinely puzzling set of cases remaining. Cases with multiple independent medical examinations. No embalming confirmed. Standard burial conditions. And preservation that persisted across decades or centuries in ways standard science has not explained. What makes this genuinely fascinating is the pattern. The people whose bodies are reported incorruptible were almost all known for extraordinary self-discipline, extensive fasting, severe dietary restriction, physical ascetic practices. These practices fundamentally alter body chemistry. Long-term caloric restriction changes microbial populations in the gut. Extended fasting changes tissue fatty acid composition. Both of these could theoretically affect the speed and nature of post-death decomposition. This is not a confirmed mechanism, but it is a plausible biological hypothesis, one that has simply never been properly investigated because investigating it would require disturbing relics, which most of the world's major religious traditions understandably prohibit. So the science stays stuck, not because the question isn't interesting, but because the evidence is literally untouchable. There are a few ways to look at this. The religious interpretation is clear. These are miraculous signs, physical evidence of holiness. For billions of people, that interpretation is entirely satisfying. The scientific interpretation is more uncomfortable because it isn't a clean dismissal. Some cases are explainable by natural factors, some are not. And the genuinely unexplained cases represent a real gap in our understanding of human biology. The human body is enormously complex. We do not fully understand everything it is capable of doing, or everything that extreme ascetic practice does to body chemistry over decades. These are legitimate scientific questions with real evidence attached to them, questions that happen to be very difficult to investigate for entirely understandable reasons. The bodies sit in their glass cases in churches across Europe, visited by pilgrims and tourists equally. Neither group has a fully satisfying explanation for what they're looking at, and the bodies remain unchanged, bodies that refuse to decompose, across centuries, across continents, with medical documentation. Some explained by natural factors, some not, still sitting in glass cases, still visited, still unchanged. If you want more things that sit between science and mystery, subscribe. Next week, people who cannot forget a single second of their lives, and why that is not a superpower.